Okay, you want to meet people in person and people keep telling you to just put yourself out there, but you have no idea what that means or what to do. And if you've tried doing it, you feel like the most awkward person alive. Some of the most common problems people tell me they run into: they freeze up, forget how to speak. Maybe you don't know how to start the conversation. Or a common one I hear is some variation of you worry about being a nuisance or bothering someone, or you worry about coming off as creepy or being accused of something untoward, or you worry that the person won't find you attractive. It's just rejection, point blank. Maybe you feel like you don't have a personality. You're going to come off as awkward and they'll notice, and that's going to be really, really uncomfortable for you. And you don't know normal social cues, so you worry you're going to miss something and be rude. Or maybe you're worried that you will say something that will turn them off, or that there will be awkward silence. And even if everything does seem to go well, you end up convincing yourself after the interaction that you ruined it, or you can't stop thinking about what you did wrong in the interaction and you dwell on every single mistake you may or may not have made. Does that sound like you? Because these are not unique problems. In fact, I recommend people start commenting below which ones they struggled with if they're comfortable, because you'll see that every single person in this comment section has probably struggled with at least one of those. I knew I did, because I was always the type to see a cute human and then refuse to make eye contact until one of us left the vicinity. And it turns out that is like an active avoidance method, because I was so incredibly scared. This is a textbook case of social anxiety. I now have figured out over the course of many years how to actually talk to anybody, and I don't even think about it. It doesn't bother me. In fact, my day job requires me to talk to strangers literally constantly. And I can give you some examples of really ridiculous scenarios that I found myself in that have actually been great, that I never could have thought I would have been in. Like, I remember flirting with two guys at once at some Memorial Day picnic one time, and they were actually like flirting with each other. It was very rom-com coded. It was actually a lot of fun. I got so comfortable being in the moment and feeling like my authentic self and not worrying about what the other people around me were thinking, that this organic interaction happened, and I ended up going on a date with one of them. I wish they went on a date with each other, quite frankly, but I digress. The point is, it is possible to go from socially anxious to unbothered at the thought of talking to strangers and actually being good at it. And it really does not come from getting more confident. I feel like that's kind of reductive. So in this video, I'm going to break down the unknowns that I wish I knew. You can't give someone a step-by-step instruction. I realized I've tried doing that before and it just doesn't work. I did this by trial and error on my own, and it took me years. So I'm hoping I can kind of help you speed up the process here. But I do need to give you a fair warning, because I think a lot of this information is incredibly valuable. But you're going to be resistant to what I'm telling you here. I know I was really resistant to these insights because it almost felt like blame. It felt like I was the problem and I was like doing something wrong. But that resistance and that shame is a symptom of the greater problem, and we're going to talk about that. So in order for you to get some benefits out of this video, as with any of my videos, I need to challenge you to sit with that resistance. Your brain is going to come up with like, you're the exception to everything I'm saying here. That's not going to work for you. This is like, there are so many different things you can come up with. Your brain's very creative. Mine was too. I get it. So that resistance is unfortunately a very normal response. And it's one of the things we're all going to have to work through if we want to see change. And I think you can do it, because I did it. And I'm not special by any means. We probably have very similar brains. Neurodivergent baddie. I had to cut my nails earlier because I couldn't think. They're short now. The ultimate goal that I have for you is that you will not need a step-by-step plan for interactions. And I get it, like that. It feels really comforting when people like say, okay, do this and then this and then this. But I don't want that for you. I don't want you to have to follow a script your whole life. That's actually part of the problem. I want you to feel like you can be spontaneous and that interactions can be effortless. And in order for me to help you get there, we need to release this resistance that you're probably having. And we do need to fundamentally shift how you view yourself and your social world. I'm about to give you some incredible insights in this video. I think a lot of you are going to like it, but I have found that those disempowering voices are the thing that's keeping people stuck. And the best way I have found to do this is live interactions with people. And that is why I am hosting a workshop all about putting yourself out there. It will be live on Saturday, August 1st at 10 a.m. Eastern. I have a limited number of spots for people, so it's manageable and I can give people more individual attention. So I recommend you check out the link in the description to snag your spot. And if you want to sign up for my newsletter using the link in the description, if you sign up right there, I will send you 20% off discount. But please hurry because it expires on this date. I'm very excited to unpack the resistance that people are experiencing, but please leave them in the comments if you have any, and I can try to help you work through as many as I can. So now we're going to talk about the 3 core truths that once you've internalized it, I promise everything's going to shift for you. We need to fundamentally shift how you're viewing these interactions, and we need to start with your social world. So right now, you are living in the world of threat, and that means you constantly feel like you are in danger when you're in social interactions. What does this look like? You may walk into a room and believe you are the center of attention and everyone is noticing you. That is called the spotlight effect, which is the false belief that your perceived flaws or even your anxiety is obvious to everyone around you. And this inevitably makes you feel like you are facing a very hyper-vigilant or hypercritical group of people that are just waiting to tear you apart. And your brain is likely running through the following sequence of, my flaws will be revealed, people will notice those flaws, people will judge them, this will lead to harsh rejection, and the rejection will be unbearable. So essentially, you see people as dangerous. You believe that you live in a hostile world of threat, and so you use safety behaviors, such as avoiding eye contact, or filtering your words, or trying to overmanage the interaction by planning what you're going to say ahead of time, as a way to protect yourself from that fear of social injury, from that rejection that feels like it would be unbearable. Does that sound like you? Let me know, okay? Are we on the right track? How are we feeling? Okay, so the shift we want to make here is to go from that world of threat to a social world that feels warmer, it feels friendlier. And this isn't a physical shift, even though I'm using the word world. What I'm talking about is you're going to go to the exact same places you already go to now and maybe even deal with some of the same people or at least similar people. But you'll have a different view of being there and it will feel different. The perspective will feel different because it's not being distorted through the lens of anxiety. We want to get your brain from threat mode into affiliation mode, which is a psychological state where you're able to look around a room and see potential friends rather than threatening enemies. And right now, you are treating every social interaction like you are a gladiator walking into an arena full of hostile judges, okay? But the truth is, you are walking into a room full of people who are just as worried and human and eager for connection as you are. And the moment you assume they want to be your friend as much as you want to be theirs, or at least want to be an ally to you while you're in this current situation, they usually will be, and it'll be fine. And it's difficult to overcome that. And we're going to talk about some of the objections at the end of the video. But the next thing I want you to understand is because you think that this person needs to be won over, or else they're going to challenge you to a duel or something, that is making things much more complicated for you. You go into every social interaction scared and thinking you have to do something big and impressive in order to win them over. And that's why it's so difficult to start conversation. And so the second fundamental shift that I think will help you and what helped me feel more comfortable in interaction is recognizing the simplicity principle of conversation. Starting a conversation is not a complicated performance. You do not need to be witty or perfectly confident or endlessly interesting. A lot of this will be context-based, but I find that what works in most contexts are 2 things. That was 4. 2 things. First is if you're at some sort of bar or cafe situation, a go-to of mine is, have you been here before? The menu seems overwhelming and I'd love some help narrowing things down. Do you have a favorite? What do you usually get? People love being asked their opinions. And if they haven't been there before, you can say oh my gosh, okay, let's figure this out together. You've just created a false actual problem. It's not really a problem, right? You're going to pick something and it'll be fine. But it does kind of create this this relationship, the symbiotic nature of things. So simple. You did not impress anyone. You didn't have to do anything crazy. If you're in a place where it's expected people will mingle and meet people, like a party or a mixer or something like that, I'm going to a watch party later today and I'll probably use this there. All you have to do is say, hi, my name's Charlotte. What's your name? Have you been following the World Cup? That's it. And it just go from there. It doesn't need to be impressive. Simple is better. The most effective first impressions involve basic warmth, a smile, and genuine curiosity and willingness to connect. It doesn't have to be anything more than that. And if you get that intrusive thought that you're bothering this person, that is likely a result of what's called toxic shame. That's when we have this really mean inner critic that we have in our heads at all times that are trying to convince us that we're fundamentally bad and flawed and unworthy of belonging. And this, like I said, is a protective mechanism. You're protecting yourself from being found out. And you put up this emotional armor and rely on safety behaviors like I talked about earlier, which are avoiding eye contact or filtering yourself out and like trying to really sterilize yourself so no one can like really pin you down. But the irony of that is that these very safety behaviors that you are employing, maybe without realizing it, are what actively is cutting you off from connection. And so you're in this vicious cycle of trying to connect using these armored behaviors, feeling rejected when that connection doesn't go anywhere, and then concluding that people suck or you suck or both because you keep getting rejected. The core truth that needs to flip here is that right now you think your flaws are a barrier to connection, but they're actually the key to it. I know it sounds so corny, but think about like perfect characters in like movies or TV shows or even fan fiction. They're boring, right? You would not want to, they're intimidating and boring. There's nothing to grasp onto there. Characters need flaws, and your imperfections are exactly what make you human and lovable and relatable. And understanding that everyone is inherently flawed and that our brokenness, or whatever you want to call it, those moments of vulnerability actually provide greater opportunities for connection and legitimate real intimacy. I had to learn that my mistakes and my flaws and my imperfections were in fact the key to the club. People love commiserating over stuff that feels really difficult. Misery loves company is a phrase that I know it means something else. It means people will drag people down. But I do actually think there is a world where you can commiserate over fears and concerns. And like, it could even be as simple as like, oh my God, I'm so indecisive. Like, help me figure out what's on the menu. I'm sure the person you're talking to has also felt indecisive about what to get at some point in their life. Is that a flaw or is that an opportunity for connection? The closer you get to believing that you are acceptable exactly as you are, the more you will be able to drop that armor and let the friendly world in. And that's when the conversation starters naturally fall into place because you're no longer hypervigilant about how this other person's going to respond. Okay, so we've gone over those three fundamental beliefs. We need to switch from a world of threat to a warm world where people are friendly. We need to have simplicity principle of how we approach our interactions, and we need to recognize that our flaws are actually our strengths in these moments of trying to connect. I want to bring this back to that resistance you might be feeling. Changing these three fundamental beliefs is easier said than done, and I recognize that, and that's why I wanted to do the live workshop so I can help field questions people may have live. But I do want to address one of the most common objections I get when I lay this stuff out, specifically when it comes to people are friendly, because so many people will have experiences where people have let them down, people have hurt them, people have wronged them. And I did cover that in this video here if you want to check that out. But I do want to address one of the most common objections I get when I lay this stuff out. And it is from LGBTQ folks or even other people of marginalized identities who are in an unwelcoming area and they don't know who to trust. They don't know how people are going to react to them revealing about themselves something that is not accepted in their area. Those feelings of danger are not actually cognitive distortions. They are very real and valid reactions to systemic oppression that we don't have control over. And because the threat of hostility is real in these situations, I don't want you to think I'm saying that you can simply get over your fear. Navigating that is difficult. I can acknowledge that. I don't want to say like, tough shit, no hope, sorry. Like, I don't want to say that to you. And I understand your brain is saying that to you, but I'm not saying that to you. Navigating this requires a combination information of self-protection with ideally community-based support if you can get it. But what I will offer you is the first thing is please honor your intuition, even though you're a little more hypervigilant than we'd like. We've established that, and I do think that there may be something there, even if you're in a hostile environment. It doesn't mean you're always wrong. So I do want you to trust your internal alarms if an environment or a person does feel unsafe. And I would also offer that to anybody here, not just LGBT people in an unwelcoming area. If you feel like someone's giving you alarm bells, I want to say, like, okay, just get out of there. Like, that is valid. I don't want you to learn to distrust yourself because I'm telling you that you may have this underlying baseline of hypervigilance. What I would pair that with is, can you start a habit of gently asking yourself, am I in danger at this moment, or is this discomfort? Because discomfort can feel like danger, and learning to discern the difference allows you to physically protect yourself from actual harm. It also empowers you to stay present in situations that are just awkward, or it's just vulnerability, but fundamentally they are physically safe. Like, you are safe from harm. And there's a really great book that talks about this in detail. It's called Conflict is Not Abuse by Sarah Schulman. So her thesis is that at almost every level of human interaction, from like intimate relationships to actually the actions of the state, which is unusual for a self-helpy kind of book to pull in a bigger societal picture. She talks about the police. She talks about people calling police on their partners. She even goes into Israel-Palestine a little bit, though this is from 2015, 2016, so it's not about the current iteration of that conflict, right? She argues that people consistently conflate discomfort with threat, and they mistake their internal anxiety for external danger, and that is ruining our relationships. And it's very well written, and I highly recommend that book. Ultimately, a lot of this comes down to our brains trying to protect us from past pain. And your brain has unfortunately learned to do that by instilling the toxic inner critic that's making you second guess your actions and how much you're valued, and you're marinating in that shame. And so mentally dismantling toxic shame is not a passive experience where you can just sit back and read a book. Like, I do think it's helpful, definitely read the books, and that's the first step. But you can't just wait for your mindset to magically change. It requires an active and deliberate, and sometimes exhausting, depending on where you're at in life, like an exhausting effort. There are a few action steps that I think you can take to address some of these feelings. They may feel cliche, but they're actually very helpful. And so please keep an open mind. The first one is journaling. So journaling allows you to kind of spar with those inner critical negative thoughts as they happen. And writing it down does something, because once the thought is on paper, the next action is to consciously write out a rational, self-compassionate defense against that mean one, right? And this allows you to then go on to what I would argue is the second kind of step here, to externalize those voices and take the action of getting the thoughts out of your head by literally speaking them out loud. And I've previously recommended doing what's called mirror work, where you look at yourself and you talk back to the evil, angry, toxic voices in your head, right? You're trying to, if you constantly look in the mirror and think like, wow, I'm a disgusting, hideous monster. You know, I've recommended saying things like, I am lovable, I am enough, all that stuff, like whatever platitude that you like. But I actually almost think it's helpful to say, I am having a toxic thought right now. If you think like, oh, I'm a hideous monster, that's not me. That's the inner critic, toxic thought. And it just creates space, the littlest amount of space. It still feels like crap, and you may start crying, and crying is actually a good thing, in my opinion. Crying is the shame leaving the body. It feels like an exorcism, and that's honestly what you have to go through, because so much of this is so ingrained in your everyday, how you go about life and how you think about yourself and how you think about the people around you, that there does need to be some sort of what feels like violence in your body. It feels like you're shaking. It feels like you're having an exorcism. You're ripping out an old part of you. There may always be remnants of it remaining in your psyche, but it's going to be nowhere as loud as it has been. And I know that sounds fantastical. I almost do think of it as like a little bit of a demon. It's nice to be able to externalize it, right? Like, it's nice to be able to think about it as separate from you. This is not your brain. This is not you. This is not your personality. This is not even what you actually think. This has been ingrained in you. This is how you learn to survive whatever situation you found yourself in that made you hate yourself so much, that made you feel like you were not valuable or worthy of even talking to a stranger. That is not a natural place to live and exist from. There's something that happened there. And I am not a therapist, but I do think that there is value in having someone who has been through it and is on the other side of it. Because I got a tattoo on my wrist reminding me not to KMS, okay? Like, okay, I'm stuttering now. I dim my humor because I know a lot of you guys are in a different place than me. I make fun of this shit all the time. Like, oh, I hated myself. Oh, I tried killing myself before I was even born, which is true. I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. And I make that joke a lot. And people are like, Charlotte, stop it. But I have found myself online, like, dimming my dark humor because I know so many of you are in such a dark place that I just don't want you to read it the wrong way. But I just want you to have hope. And that's why I made this YouTube channel and what I'm doing here. I want you to have hope that this doesn't have to be how you think forever. And I know that excavating these thoughts feels so shameful. It feels like blame. It feels like you're being blamed for all of your problems. When those feelings of shame and blame come up, it's so easy to say, fuck you, you don't know anything, what's wrong with you? Like, it's so easy to tell the person off who is saying that to you instead of reflecting and saying, I'm feeling the shame, and that shame is a symptom. That shame is preventing me from making any change in my life. That's ultimately what I had to do. I am feeling shame right now. I know I need to take responsibility for my thoughts and therefore my actions and how I approach things, but it's coming up as shame. Just being able to acknowledge that is such a huge step. It's almost like step 0. This shame around feeling like I have any agency at all for the situation I am in and for how I feel about myself and for where I'm at is keeping me from changing that about myself. And it's keeping me from really actualizing what I'm fully capable of. That is what I want for you. And there's been a lot of trial and error in how I communicate on here. And I hope it's helpful. And I hope to see some of you in the workshop. I think this is going to be a really good way to experiment with what works for different people, because I know not everyone has the same communication style or not everything resonates with everyone in the same way. Because remember, you're never going to feel ready to start. The action has to come first, and then those feelings of readiness or feeling like maybe this isn't completely out of my reach will follow once you've taken action. And if you need help unpacking that, you should watch this video next.